Hello everyone, my name is Amanda and welcome back to another video of the Planting Mandy. Okay, so for those of you who live in the northern hemisphere like myself, winter is here, more or less. It's already December, although there is still some warmer day, there's some cooler day, but you know, more or less winter is here, right? So today I think I will talk about how to switch up your care routine for your Hoyas in the winter. So this video actually can apply to different plants too, but because most of my collections are Hoyas, so I think I'm just gonna, focus more on the Hoya care. So let's get started. So when I talk about how to switch your Hoya care from the summer mode into the winter mode, I'm going to break it down into different factors and categories. So the two most important factors, in my opinion and experience, are the temperatures and the lights. So for temperature-wise, obviously the temperature in the winter will be lower on average in comparison to the summer. And as you know, most of the Hoyas come from subtropical countries, or countries closer to the equator. So meaning that they like warmer weather. They thrive in warmer weather. So if your temperature is gonna drop, I would say to the 40s, like the low 40s in Fahrenheit, you may want to consider moving your Hoya indoor, because if your Hoyas are outside and it's get too cold at nighttime, especially in the winter, they may suffer from cold damage. There may be cold damage on the leaves, and at that point you will just have to remove the leaves. There's no reversal for that. And if your whole plant suffer from cold damage, including the root system, then your plant is a goner, and that's pretty sad. So make sure that in the winter, pay attention to your local temperature and just move your Hoya inside if necessary. So another equally important factors when it comes to winter Hoya care is light. As you guys all know, Hoya like a lot of bright indirect light, and it's mainly because they come from subtropical and tropical areas, or areas closer to the equator, which get 12 hours of daylight minimum every day. And that's why, they like bright light, because that's where they come from, right? So in the winter time, because of the day length is a lot shorter in comparison to the summer, you may want to consider how to supplement those lack of daylights in the winter. So I personally use grow light no matter what, because I just don't get enough of light for my Hoyas to optimize its growth. So it doesn't really make a difference to me. I still, leave my grow lights on for 10 to 12 hours a day. However, if you grow your Hoya outside, like in the greenhouse or in your garden, right, you may want to consider how to supplement those lack of daylight, if you want your Hoyas to keep on growing in the winter time. Okay, so if you do decide that you want to supplement the lack of daylight in the winter for your Hoyas using grow lights, then you will have to consider what kind of grow lights you want to get. So one of the major questions I got a lot is, what color of grow lights, should I use, right? So there is the white light, which is the full spectrum LED light, and there is the purple light, which is the red and the blue lights together, and there's also yellow lights, right? So there's all kind of different grow lights. And to answer your question, I use all kinds. Like I have some full spectrum white lights, I have some purple lights, I have some yellow lights. And the reason I use all kinds is because I just get whatever I can find at the lowest budget. And that's why I have all kinds. And to be more serious though, it's because I use a lot of them, so they really add up. And my friend Ken is very generous and sweet that he would give me the grow lights that he no longer need. So I basically just get whatever I can get from him, plus a couple that I purchase here and there. So yeah, so that's why I have all colors. But generally speaking, I would suggest to get like a full spectrum white light. You cannot really go wrong with it. However, other than the colors, there's a couple other factors you may want to consider. So the most important thing is the volume of the light, like how much light you actually need to supplement for your Hoyas because of the reduction of the day length in the winter time. So next, we're gonna get a little bit more technical because light is just so important for your Hoyas, especially in the winter. So when we talk about the volume of the light, right, it's composed of two different things. Number one is the power value of the light. So basically, it's measure how many photons, which is light particles. I know it's super scientific and technical, but bear with me. So basically, it's how much photons from the light stream times the duration, of the lights, of the hours you leave the grow lights on, right? So you have to consider both in order to give your Hoyas the optimal light condition for it to continue to grow in the winter. So basically, it's just the intensity of the light times how long you're gonna leave the lights on. So you have to consider both factors, right? Because even if you have a really strong light, really intense light, and you only leave it for like an hour, it's not gonna do much, right? Or you have a really weak lights, like really low weak lights, and then you leave it for like 10 hours a day, it's still not gonna do anything because you have to consider both factors in order to maximize the volume of the lights, right? So I know power value, it's a very abstract terms to a lot of people. So you can actually roughly translate it into wattage, which is a lot easier to understand. So generally speaking, okay, so generally speaking, not like exact, right? Because this is like just approximate math, right? Converting power into wattage, right? So generally speaking, you want to aim for about 60 to 80 watts per a 2 by 2 square feet of area, right? So this is approximate again, because it also depends on like how many plants you have and how far you put your grow lights. But I'm not going to go into details here because I can do a whole other like hour video for grow lights itself. But yeah, so you do want to consider all those factors, if you want to supplement your Hoyas with grow light. So, and bear in mind that I said earlier, if you want your Hoya continue to grow in the winter, you would have to supplement with grow lights. That means that if you don't supplement your Hoyas with grow light, they're not gonna die. Like there's still, light coming in, right? That's how nature works. However, like they may go a little bit more dormant in the winter if you don't supplement them with enough light, or they may just not grow or drop a few leaves because there's just no need for them to maintain so much foliage because the light or the food source is not there. So bear in mind that if you feel like, oh my god, like I don't have enough lights, but I also don't want to spend money on grow lights, or I don't have access to grow lights, or I don't want to use grow lights for whatever reason, then it's fine. Your Hoyas will survive, but it's just not gonna grow as much as it is in the summer. So other than temperature and light, there is a couple other factors we also want to switch up a little bit when it's come to winter Hoya care, right? And the reason I discuss temperature and light first is because the following factors that I'm going to be discussing with you are highly affected by temperature and light, right? So the next one I want to talk to you about is water. So obviously in the winter, you will want to water your Hoyas less. And the reason is, number one, there's less lights, right? And number two, the temperatures is lower. So it means that the Hoya they just don't need that much water in comparison to the summer because the photosynthesis, which is, the lights, right? It's what drives the Hoya to absorb the water. And also if it's hotter, right, the water evaporates faster in the summer. It means that, the Hoyas would need more water in the summer because the temperature is higher. So when you consider like this couple of things, right, number one, you don't have as much light. And number two, the weather is not as hot. So as a result, you would have to water your Hoya less because if there's not enough light and the temperature is much lower and you still water your Hoya like a lot, so what's going to happen is all this water that the Hoyas are unable to use will be just staying in the soil or whatever medium that you use, and suffocate the roots and cause root rot. And this is a term that no Hoya sufferer would like to hear, root rot, right? So the Hoya is probably not gonna do so well. So make sure that in the winter, because of the reduction of light and also the reduction of the temperature, you'll want to water your Hoya less. All right, next we're gonna talk about humidity. Generally speaking, Hoya do like higher humidity or mid to high humidity just because of, again, where they come from, subtropical or tropical area, which is very humid, right? So in the winter, because our humidity would also drop, right? So if your humidity like is really low, like let's say if it's like in the 30s or 20s, you may consider supplementing the humidity for a little bit. Now your Hoya is not gonna like die if you don't supplement with more humidity. However, again, same as the light situation, if you want your Hoya to continue to thrive, then you may want to supplement with, a humidifier, right? I personally do not use humidifier for two reasons. Number one, my humidity just doesn't drop that low because, again, I live in San Francisco and I live really close by the beach. So my humidity, even in the winter, if it's low, it's about 50s. So like in the 50%, 50 something percent, right? So it's not that low. So I group all my Hoyas together. There's literally like 80 Hoyas that group together. So they help each other out with their with the evaporation rate of the water, right? So I just don't use a humidifier at all. But I do have some pebble tray of water, that help a little bit with the humidity. But generally speaking, I don't use a humidifier. But if you're in a drier area that the humidity is gonna drop to like 30, 20s or even lower, then yeah, you may supplement with a humidifier, or just like myself, you can supplement with a pebble tray. So that would keep your Hoyas actually a lot happier. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about fertilizing. So I leave it to the last is because it's not really, I don't want to say it's not necessary, but it's like the least important factors. So just like watering, because in the winter, your Hoya is just not gonna grow as much as in the summer, like naturally. You don't need to fertilize as much. So generally speaking, I fertilize my Hoya in the growing season, which is, summer in the Northern Hemisphere, once every 2 or 3 weeks, I would say at most. So in the winter, you may like drop it to like once every 6 to 8 weeks, I would say, and then the Hoyas will be fine. So, but obviously you still want to observe the plants, right? So if you drop your fertilizing schedule like by 2 or 3 weeks, and then you observe your Hoyas and you start seeing like, yellow leaves. So that means that your Hoyas may actually need some nitrogen. So, still, even though generally speaking, they don't need as much but as much fertilizer in the winter in comparison to the summer, you still want to really like look at your plants because everyone and growing environment is different. So we talk about 5 different things. We talk about light, temperature, water, humidity, and fertilizing in this video. So those are the things that I would consider myself when I switch my Hoya care routine from summer mode to winter mode. Now, bear in mind that at least in the Northern Hemisphere, we call the summer the growing season for a reason. It's because that's when the Hoyas generally grow a lot faster, even in nature, in its natural habitat. It's because of the temperature, it's because of, there's more light available for the Hoyas. So with that being said, even if you don't do anything, like even if you don't add a grow light, you don't add a humidifier, your Hoya is not gonna die. Like, don't feel bad about it. Like, if you're unable to do those things, your Hoyas will still be alive. Like I said earlier, it may go dormant, like it may not grow as much, or it may drop a few leaves just because, they just don't need so much foliage because the food, like aka the lights, is not there, right? So your Hoya will be fine. It will be alive. Just make sure you don't overwater it and it will be fine, right? So yeah, don't feel bad if you cannot like, you know, buy an extra grow light for it. It'll be okay. That's just what plants do in the nature. They just adapt and they just grow when the environment is favorable, and they just stop growing and conserve energy when the environment is not favorable. So it's totally fine. All right, so that's all I have for you today. I know today is more like a talking video. I hope you know, you guys learned something from it. And if you like this video, make sure you click like. If you want more future video, make sure you click subscribe. And I will see you next time. Bye.